Wisconsin and Ohio have had legislation in their state houses going after organized labor. You made a comment a while back that some folks in the organized labor community took issue with, and you had said, "I think the police union is out of control, and it makes me question the need and wisdom of having a police union in El Paso."
Yeah. Let me say this because it's a real important subject, and it is an especially important subject to the Democratic Party and the people who will be voting in this primary. Organized labor is one of the most important developments over the course of American history. And it is trite for some people to outline all the achievements, but it's important nonetheless, and so I'll do it. I mean, if you think about child labor, if you think about the work week that people used to labor under that wasn't 40 hours, or as many, in cases, many dozens of hours longer than that. If you think about the terrible, unsafe conditions under which people labored, the accidents, the fatalities, the mistreatment, the low wages, the lack of leverage for the worker when he was not paid or was not paid a fair wage. We in this country, every single one of us owes a huge debt to labor. I am a huge believer in the right of labor to organize. And I still am, and none of that has changed. I'll tell you though that there is a difference when you have collective bargaining in the public sector. And to reiterate, the city council that I served on made a decision to bail out the police fire pension fund to the tune of $200 million. And it's true that the police and fire unions made some concessions on their end. But the taxpayer, all of us are on the line for that $200 million to meet our obligation to those members. I was deeply disappointed in especially the police unions' intransigence when we were in tough budget straits because we were in the depth of a national recession that was affecting El Paso. We didn't want to lay anybody off, and the police union had negotiated a contract for themselves that the city council, minus my vote and minus Steve Ortega's vote, had agreed to, that gave them guaranteed raises, merit raises, and step increases, and a very rich benefits program, while everyday El Pasoans that I represent and pay taxes and to pay their salaries were going broke and were going without jobs. I thought that was unfair. And so in that context, I felt like, and frankly I still have some problems with the power that the police and fire collective bargaining contracts have. I think it puts the El Paso taxpayer at a disadvantage. And frankly, it's another one of those things that unless someone who has the courage to do so will stand up and negotiate a better deal for the public citizen is unsustainable. We'll run out of money and we'll have to start laying people off. And it's unaffordable. So I think you have a problem when the people who are paying and donating to your campaign and control a lot of the flow of money and influence in those campaigns are then sitting across from you at the negotiating table. Sure. And only, I'll say this, it was a bad deal that the city negotiated with the police union. I'm proud of my vote against it, but we took holy hell from the police union for voting against it. And it's an unequal balance of power. Now, you know, the city doesn't have the power, nor do I as an individual, to do away with collective bargaining, but I seriously question the city's backbone in standing up and negotiating a good deal. But I want to reiterate, because it's an important issue, I believe in the right to organize. I think it's done wonderful things for this country. I do think there need to be better checks on collective bargaining in the public sector. I don't, by any stretch, want to do what Wisconsin's done, but I do want to make sure that the El Paso taxpayer is protected, and that's what I was trying to do.
Okay, you've been very generous with your time, so I just want to ask you one more question, and I wanted to go get into the legalization discussion, but that's
we can have another half hour.
Sure, that's far too much. I did want to just clarify one aspect, though. When you have been very public about your advocacy for legalization, do you mean all drugs? Do you mean specifically marijuana? That one particular part, I kind of want to get clarified.
Yeah, and I apologize. I just don't feel like it's fair to me or to the issue to try to answer this in a sentence. given the horrible situation in Juarez starting in 2007, 2008, that has only escalated and gotten worse over time, the City Council considered what the inputs to the problems were and concluded that one of them was drug demand in the U.S., the drug trade that passes through Mexico and is enforced by these narco cartels, and drug prohibition in the United States. And given all those components, we said we should have an open and honest dialogue and debate on whether or not legalizing some drugs makes sense. And that is all we said. Let's have a discussion on it. I have since come to the conclusion that marijuana, of all those drugs, merits further discussion, debate, and thought about whether or not we should regulate, control, and tax it so that we can take some power and money and resources away from the cartels so that we can earn some tax revenue on the billions of dollars in marijuana trade that pass right through El Paso every year, and so that we can have a more sensible policy that does a better job of protecting your kids and my kids from the influence of marijuana, which right now is incredibly easily available in every single public high school in America. This country has spent $1 trillion on a war on drugs, and marijuana is just as available to any kid in the U.S. high school today as it was in 1970 when the war on drugs started. The only difference is that marijuana today is more potent. The kids who are selling it are armed and shooting at each other. We can do much better for our kids, our country, our community, Juarez, and the terrible suffering there. And I think we owe it to ourselves to have those tough discussions, and that's why I brought it up.